Anybody can go from just starting out to winning almost every game they play with 10 plus kills in Fortnite Season 2 within only a matter of weeks, maybe even days, by using the strategies that I'll be going over in this video. My name is Storm Ranger, and be sure to stick around until the end since I have a ton of unique strategies for improving at Fortnite that you're not going to get anywhere else. But first, if this is your first time here, you want to learn how to get better at Fortnite, get exclusive items easily, and improve at all other Fortnite related things, you can start now by subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss out on anything. Okay, so I'm not going to stretch out this video or anything, I'm just going to get started. One simple but crucial strategy you should probably follow when trying to improve at Fortnite is to watch professionals play the game. This is a step that is so important that I don't see a lot of people doing. Whether you were just starting out or have been playing Fortnite for a long time, the meta is always changing. There are always new and different strategies for defeating your opponents, and it is insanely important that you stay up to date with these strategies. When you watch professionals on YouTube, Twitch, or other platforms play the game, you are able to pick up on the strategies they use to win the game. One series in particular I highly recommend you all go watch is Cypher PK's Educational Commentary series. This is where he plays and usually wins a game of Fortnite while explaining every move he does and why. When I started playing, I watched nearly all of his guides, and because of it, I quickly picked up on ways to outsmart my opponents. Now when following this step, I highly recommend watching others play when you yourself cannot play. This could be during a car ride, when waiting for the bus to come, or during math class. Seriously, that way you can ensure that even when you're away from your gaming setup, you are improving at Fortnite. Now while this step is very important, you still won't be able to improve at the game if you don't follow any of my other strategies because they are all so crucial. So definitely be sure to stick around until the end since I'm saving the best strategies for last. Now my second strategy may seem obvious, but is to play aggressively and to play in Team Rumble. Yes, I know this might not be anything new, but I see people not doing this all the time, and I get comments about this quite frequently, so I'll briefly cover it now. So when I started off playing Fortnite, I would see a ton of people camp and play incredibly passive over the entire game, only to die at the very end. This got boring very quickly, leading to these people dying, failing to improve, and simply quitting the game. So don't play passive. Thankfully, these days the game of Team Rumble exists, which is actually amazing, because in Team Rumble, you and your opponents can all respawn, which gives you the opportunities to get into at least 15 to 20 fights within only a matter of a few minutes. So if you're not confident with your skills at the game, just do 5 to 10 games of Team Rumble and you will quickly see your improvement. And then when you feel confident enough to go into a real game, when playing be sure to be focused on how many kills you get in that game and not whether you win or not. Because a win does not mean anything if you only kill 1 or 2 opponents. But even if you don't win, killing 9 to 10 opponents is a lot more impressive. Also, one other strategy, which is kind of related to this, is to not land at hot drops. I make this mistake all of the time because I want to get a ton of kills, so I land the most crowded area that I can find. But this will rarely work in your favor because the early game is super luck oriented based off of what items you get, how much shield you find, and if anyone lands near you. So to avoid this, just land somewhere safe, you can get a solid amount of loot and then push to find opponents. Be sure to look at the storm circle and use rotations to your advantage to find opponents where they are the most vulnerable. If you do this, in each fight, you'll be prepared and won't need to worry about some luck-oriented factor contributing to your demise. Personally, my best games of 10 to 13 to one time even 17 kills has come from using a strategy like this, and then whenever I land at the hot drop, I almost never live for more than 5 minutes. But overall, really just be sure to push opponents and play aggressively like I mentioned before, while at the same time being reasonable about it and not getting yourself into situations where the outcome is completely centered around luck. So the next strategy is something that you may hear from a lot of other sources. And don't worry, after this, I have some game-breaking strategies that you won't hear from anyone else. However, I have my own spin on this strategy too, and this is to practice your aim, building, and editing. Now, a lot of people may tell you, go into creative and practice building, then do a bunch of fancy edits and shoot things. But I am more of a fan of having experience against actual opponents, because the reality of this is, high ground doesn't matter if you can't hit your opponents. I can't say how many times I've been in a fight where my opponent has destroyed me to getting to high ground, but they were so caught up in doing all their fancy building and shots that they don't actually land any shots on me, or I just was able to shoot them while they were building. Fortnite is a game of strategy, and building really fast is not much of a strategy. You must instead build with coordination. Be careful and intentional with every build you place, and don't waste any materials. And honestly, this is not something that you can learn by yourself when playing in a game of creative. It takes practice after fighting against real players. Also, going back to my first point, by watching professionals play, you can get an idea of the strategies to use when in a build fight, and incorporate them into your gameplay. You can practice these strategies in Team Rumble against real people, then bring them into your gameplay when in any regular game mode. But unless you're going to do a free-for-all of a bunch of your friends in creative, personally I find it boring and simply a waste of time to play in creative by yourself. Now, on top of all of these strategies, also make sure to focus on playing consistently. Don't spend one day playing Fortnite for 10 hours and then not pick up the game for another 2 weeks. It would be a lot more practical to play Fortnite every day for 45 minutes over that 2-week time period. Nothing is healthy in excess, and there is no exception to that rule for Fortnite. When trying to get better at something, after several hours you will hit a roadblock and begin to struggle tremendously. When trying to improve at really anything, nothing is better than consistency. The rule is especially important for Fortnite as the meta is always changing. So be sure to apply every strategy I go over in this video consistently, because if you don't, then you will never get better. Now, the final strategy, which to be honest is probably the best and most important out of all these strategies, is to reflect on your mistakes. What I mean by this is whenever you die in a fight, look back on that fight and determine where the fight went wrong. Find out what it was that your opponent did to take the advantage in that fight. And then the same goes for whenever you win a fight. What was it that you did that gave you the advantage in that fight? Once you find the mistakes both you and your opponent made, be sure not to repeat those mistakes. It is that simple. And the reason that the strategy works so well is because there are only so many mistakes that you can make in Fortnite. When you're playing and you die, it's usually because you are making the same mistake over and over again. And this is by far the biggest reason people don't improve. So to avoid this, reflect on your mistakes and be sure that you improve from them so you are not making the same mistakes over and over again. Since making mistakes is the only reason you will ever lose a game of Fortnite, except for bad Wi-Fi of course, cutting back on the mistakes you make will let you get better at a consistent and efficient rate. To make sure that you go about doing this effectively, there are a few things that I recommend you do. First, I recommend you get a screen recorder. For PC, this would be a software like what I use, Screenbits. On mobile, this would be a built-in screen recorder for the iPhone, whatever app you can find for your Android. And then for console, including PS4, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch, there are built-in functions allowing you to record game clips of either what happened right before you hit the record button, or what happens for a select period of time right after you hit the record button. Anyway, after you finish your first game of Fortnite, simply go back and rewatch the main fights you got into. Get an idea of what mistakes your opponent made and what mistakes you made, on top of both what you and your opponent did right and how this led to the outcome of the fight. That rhymed. Another thing you can do on top of this, to be sure that you definitely do not repeat the same mistakes, would be to write the outcomes of each game or fight you get into down, including what you did that allowed you to win or lose that game or that fight. You can then refer to this sheet to be sure that you are not consistently dying for the same reasons. But really, the strategy is such a big deal, and as long as you follow it, nothing will stop you from improving. Now, if you enjoyed this video and want to support me, you can use code StormRanger when purchasing anything within the Fortnite item shop, and purchase my merchandise found down below, or by clicking here. And then if this is your first time here, and you want to learn how to get better at Fortnite, get exclusive items easily, and improve at all sorts of other Fortnite things, you can start now by subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss out on anything. Finally, you can click this card right here to learn how to get the Rogue Spider Knight for really cheap. But that is all I have for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.